welcome back to Some Assembly Required. This is Necro Dave at the CollectionDX. To my right,
Ben, Prometheum 5.
I'm Andrew, VF5SS, or the VEEF.
And I'm Rodimus 78.
nice.
Stop sending me stuff.
No, it's Josh B. In case you didn't know who I am, you know.
Everybody knows Josh B.
You should know by now.
You can recognize the hands, right?
It's big old paws.
My big sausage fingers, basically.
We would be
Everybody
nice.
knows my hands because they've been destroyed by winners.
Yeah.
So what are we talking about now? We didn't really talk about what we're talking about.
We never do we?
No.
We just bring it up and...
It's just, you know,
It just happens.
just hanging a little assortment of toys
So
here.
here's the thing, because the show is not about anything other than us.
Yeah.
If people want to see us. I mean, these toys, we could kick them over. Doesn't matter what we talk about. They're still... Oh, good God, man.
See, you don't care about the toys.
Yeah.
I
Not
care,
at all.
I care about my toys.
I'm gonna pick this one up.
Maybe you should put those
we
over
just
here.
lost half our panel right there. You know, they're going to leave.
They're like, oh my god, this is toy brutality.
It's okay.
Well, actually, no, that kind of brings up something that we talked about last week that I thought might be fun to talk about, like toy etiquette.
Sure.
Do you want to tackle that today?
Absolutely, that'd be awesome.
All right.
And
cool.
how I just broke a major rule of toys.
Exactly.
That was the big one.
Yeah, you hurt the box.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Somewhere Josh Frazier's crazy.
I'm sure the box is fine. Let's take a look and see actually if I did any damage to it.
I think you actually hurt more what you hit, you know,
Yeah.
what it landed on more than
No,
what
dude,
you
look at that. It's still C8.
Nice.
Yeah. They put that on anybody.
But see, here's the thing: is I knew what the toy was what it was capable of. You know, one, it's not a valuable toy.
Mhm.
It's cheap as
Survival.
shit. Two, it's the box I don't care about at all. If and when I open this, I am going to throw the box away.
Yeah.
I'm not going to keep it.
Okay.
So it doesn't matter to me. It's disposable. It's kind of like it's a cheap item. It's not.
The laugh you got is worth more than
Yeah,
whatever
yeah,
you paid for
yeah.
that.
Plus,
you
he
know?
can throw things because it's his house.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
Yeah. Because I knew it was a calculated risk. So
I'm just
Well,
glad
unless he hit the
I'm
camera.
just glad you didn't hit the camera. You know?
Yeah, that would have been.
Then it
We
would have been
totally
bad.
failed at hitting the camera with the spacer missiles. And
wouldn't that be awesome if that was just like in
first
3D
episode?
and then just like.
There you go.
Right. We need to start over,
It's
get
gonna
a new
cost more.
camera, and then, you know, hope you have your glasses on at home, kids.
Okay. So
We should have told you. Well, actually, you can probably edit it in.
yeah,
You
sure.
know, put your 3D glasses on.
3D glasses
and they'll
on?
be so disappointed with nothing to watch the whole thing in 3D.
I get a
Nothing
headache.
happens.
When's it gonna happen?
Yeah.
So there's obviously, some people keep the boxes for everything. Some people display things in their boxes, and like
Sean, we're looking at you, buddy.
well, no, but I can understand the vintage stuff in boxes. Like I see people display their SOCs in the box,
That's
you know,
weird.
and like they'll just have them.
Well,
Like,
there's a picture of it on the front,
Yeah.
so really, who cares?
That's all they need?
yeah, but I think the boxes today really are not just of the caliber that the old boxes were, and.
Well, that's because they
You
had to
mean-
hide the fact that the toys were terrible. No.
You mean in terms of the actual coolness of how it looks and everything
Yeah, yeah. I mean, a lot of times it's literally just a photograph
of the jumping
and some
machine version.
Photoshop,
Yeah.
Photoshop background. But
Yeah.
but still, those primary colors, they're very striking. The bad English, if there was any,
Yeah.
Now I'm just not the packaging. Like when I review a toy, unless it's remarkable packaging, I won't really comment on it at all.
It's just a box.
Yeah, it's literally just a vessel
Holds the toy.
to get this thing to me. And I may say like, oh, if it's got styrofoam, I'll get a little excited with the styrofoam because of my affinity for vintage. But as a rule, yeah, I just don't get excited over it. But I do keep all my SOC boxes, but only for the thought of maybe someday I'll sell this.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
feel that the same way.
Not because I care about keeping that box in good shape. It's more about just a nice way to
You're in it-
organize all the parts that you got.
You're in it for the money.
I am a whore.
Yeah.
It's not good.
No, but it's,
But no, it makes total
it's
sense.
an insurance.
I do the same
It's an
thing.
insurance policy. I
If
don't
you
plan
spend-
on getting rid of them, but
If you ever have to, you want to get as much as you can.
Exactly.
You know, that
Yeah.
makes perfect sense.
I think my biggest thing is just a place to put all the stuff I'm not using.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just put the accessories back in the box.
Right.
SOCs
Of course,
come with half an extra
you
toy.
kind of get
Exactly.
my whole problem is that you need to get boxes for all the boxes that you're not using. And just kind
That's what's great for my jumbo boxes. You know how many extra empty boxes I can stick inside those big
Yeah,
bags?
that's great.
But the problem is,
Seriously.
I have them all tucked away in hard to find places.
If you
hard
have to
reach
get them,
places.
that's
Yeah,
gotta
I
be-
it really
not
is.
only having to get them, but trying to remember what box I put in what box. So inevitably,
Yeah.
I take every single box out. My whole display gets ruined, and it's always the last box I look in. Which is like the last one. I'll take every single box apart
It's on the bottom.
before I finally found it. Or sometimes I'll remember. Like I did this recently when I redid my displays. I took all my boxes out, could not find the box I was looking for. You know where it was? It was it was like plain as day inside a box that was just on a shelf that I had to it was right there. And I forgot I put it in that box. But I don't know how else to do it because I can't mark the boxes. I mean, I guess I could put a post-it note on it, but it will probably fall off in all the shifting, and it's kind of a pain.
So, in terms of etiquette, though, like, do you think there's so if you're gonna keep a box, okay, and you're gonna store a box, do you guys? Some people wrap their boxes in like that kind of clear cellophane. Some people will pack in like a piece of the little silica gel packets.
Yeah.
They'll throw those in the boxes. Some people worry about the temperature. Do you think is that really warranted? I know for my stuff, they go in a Tupperware tub, and they go in my attic, which
Yeah.
gets to be like 150 degrees in the summer and like 0 in the winter. And you know what? It doesn't affect shit.
They're just boxes.
Yeah, it doesn't affect anything.
Well,
you
I
know?
was going to say, my stuff's kept in the basement, so if you're keeping it in the basement, keep it off the ground in case you get flooded, because it does happen,
Yeah.
And you don't want to find out after the fact that, you've got a crack that you didn't know about, and your boxes are ruined because they're soaked. I've had a couple that have gotten wet, and fortunately they weren't major things, but right now you could literally take a hose to my basement and just soak it all down. Nothing I have would get wet.
That's cool.
Unless you sprayed it directly on the thing. So.
Well,
Don't
what
worry.
I find is really useful is like if you know of a liquor store around somewhere, for whatever reason, the case boxes are actually very good at like storing boxes. I mean, they're huge, and they're probably going to be filled with stuff that's worth a lot more than was actually in there originally.
The bad thing about getting liquor store boxes is you can't mail anything in them.
That's
Yeah,
true.
My boxes are just in a giant tower between my bookshelf and my wall in my bedroom, strategically organized to squeeze into the space so that boxes can basically levitate.
Okay.
Because I have plenty of boxes that I'm sure I don't need. At this point, basically any expensive modern toy I save the box for, just for the sake of having it and to keep accessories. And then, I have some shamefully still in the box stuff like Yamato scope dogs, because nowhere can store Yamato scope dogs. So basically just, like, I have SOC boxes and I have the Pat Labor Goken and stuff like that. And then I organize the boxes so that I have little nooks that I can put vintage Transformer boxes on as display. Because I have a handful of really nice vintage Japanese exclusive Transformer boxes. So those get displayed on the outer veneer of the box tower, and then we just don't touch the box tower.
All right.
So God forbid you ever want something, but it's in there.
Well, it's funny too because you're in college. I thought you were going to say you use your boxes as like a coffee table or something.
No, I don't. I try not to bring
It's
boxes
furniture,
to school. School doesn't have enough room for these things.
So how does that, like, I have a house, So I have an attic, I have a garage, I got storage. I managed to find a fair amount of places to squirrel this stuff away, you at home,
I have a bedroom.
you have a bedroom. Like, do your parents, like, does it all have to be stored in your bedroom? Do you have another place in the house, and how do they feel about
My dad
that
actually
stuff?
has some storage sheds because he runs a business, so he has a lot of storage space. So some huge boxes of mine are actually in the shed out back. I have an RC tank kit that came in a box about the size of your coffee table. That's out back. I have more big boxes. I have a Fort Max box that could go out there, and some Yamato scope dogs. Yamato boxes in general can just be,
The big.
they're big. But basically it's all in my room, which is bad for my room, because I actually organized a lot of stuff last time I was home for break, because you couldn't walk. But, basically, by the foot of my bed are boxes, because there's the Fort Max box, and there's my large Martin, that huge red guy. That is a box even bigger than Fortress Maximus. So that's there. And basically, on top of those two are a couple boxes, and then just some stuff. And then the box tower's there, and kind of on its own. So it's pretty self-contained in my room.
That's
Eventually, I will come out of my cocoon like a butterfly and have 9 times as much display space.
sweet.
Things will come out of their boxes.
Well, that's all interesting and all, but to me that's not really etiquette per se.
宇宙戦艦ヤマトニューメカニズムの秘密全公開コスモレーダーオープンスペースランチャー発進デラックスコピニカ宇宙戦艦ヤマトコピーより発売中
Louis Gossett Jr. stars as the man of war who died for peace in Sadat. Thursday night's 8 o'clock movie on Channel 56.
These are Super GoBots, the mightiest GoBots of all. Stax, Leader 1, and Psycho sold separately.
Think you're big enough for the king of the road? Try me.
Mighty robots, mighty vehicles, robots.
Too big, Stacks. Not so fast, Psycho. Thanks, good buddy.
Super GoBots. Stax, Leader 1, and Psycho each sold separately from Tonka.
I gotta feel the taste, gotta make it right. Just one thing will do. Gotta get pumped, yeah, gotta get pumped.
The pop sensation of Kellogg's Corn Pop cereal, part of this nutritious breakfast.
I gotta get pumped, yeah, gotta get pumped.
Never before in this galaxy, free Starbots. Star travelers you transform and put together. One free in Corn Pops.
All of the Peanuts gang will be coming up next on the Jerry Bear and Snoopy Show.
And now back to Land of the Lost.
No, like
true.
We went on a tangent.
We forgot the
Yeah,
topic
that's
again.
we kind of did, but
Well,
I think when you threw the box, that the first thing that makes me think of is just enjoy your toys. You know,
Yeah.
I mean, don't be afraid of them.
Try not to treat them as
What if you have horror toys? Those are scary.
collect. Like I don't want to say because they are collectibles, but
yeah.
But
the thing
play
is,
with them.
The thing is, collectibles. I mean,
enjoy the intrinsic value of the piece, not so much as what it's worth.
I'm guessing the thing you just threw wasn't limited to 20.
No.
That's a collectible. What you just threw was something that was probably mass produced.
Yeah, mass market.
Yeah, that's
you know,
never gonna be worth anything.
No.
These days. Something mass produced in this day and age.
Unless you put it on eBay.
Yeah, well, I mean,
Lost half its value when you bought it.
yeah. Well, half the people who buy them these days are looking to sell them, so they always get saved and they're always going to be available. They may go up in price a little bit, but
Plus, that's stupid.
you're not going to retire on it. You're not going to retire on it.
No,
So
it's not an investment, and you shouldn't ever think it is.
But it's still got goddamn twist ties.
Because you're not supposed to take it out of the box. We just discussed this.
Here's another thing you should do if you're a collector. On your keychain,
It's some kind of a cutter.
have a little knife.
I could do that.
Oh wow,
Don't
that's
do
even
it.
a little box cutter.
Yeah.
I should get
Just
one
don't
of
bring it on the
Because
plane.
you never know when you're going to be opening a toy.
those. They do come up just sort of surprise
Yeah,
you.
exactly. Be ready. Be ready.
Boy Scouts.
But and talking about being ready and playing with your toys, this is something that a lot of people don't really think of. Maybe especially like you guys don't have kids. I don't have kids, but I have
I don't
nephews.
have kids either.
Yeah,
That's what
I have
thank God.
nephews. Here's something that I think you should really do. As much as you love your toys, and that you probably want to keep them in as good a condition as you can, except for when you're throwing them against the wall, sooner or later kids are going to come to your house. They're going to see your collection, they're going to freak out, and they're going to want to play with them. Throw the kids a bone, have something around that they can play with. Whether it's some cheapo vinyl kaiju or some Star Wars toys or something, I say have something that you can distract the kids with so that they don't go absolutely bananas. Would you agree, Josh? Do you have that
I absolutely
experience?
agree. I have 4 kids, and my girls are older now, but they were younger and curious. They were 5 years old and came into Daddy's office and wanted to play with stuff. And I always made a point to keep things at a low level that I wasn't so concerned about.
Yeah.
Well, there's 2 things you got to think about. One is appropriateness for little hands. A lot of these things, quite frankly, they can be sharp. They can have projectiles.
Modern toys are dangerous.
They can be heavy. You have a thing on a shelf that a kid's going to pull off, and boom, you get a Gokin on the head, and that's not good. So what I would do is I would have like my Power Ranger jumbos. I would have Transformers and things. I would keep those like at a ground level, and
Transform. You're gonna break the Transformers.
Old trim.
Dude, I had I had older ones. Yeah, the simpler ones. But they wouldn't transform them. They would just pick them up,
Right.
and I wasn't. I mean,
They just want to scope it out.
Yeah, they wouldn't want to transform it. They may hand it to me and say, "Make it a car," and that was a cool thing to them.
Yeah.
But it was a way for them to experience it. They didn't feel left out. They didn't feel excluded, and they weren't so tempted to get the stuff that was out of reach.
Right.
Like I know we joked about it earlier, but we are in my kid's playroom, okay? And I have a giant glass display case in here with tons of vintage toys. And
Brightly colored kid
but it's
toys.
locked, and the kids don't touch it because I let them play with all this other stuff.
Yeah, I've found that the kids that have come to my house, they're surprisingly well behaved. But like I said, I do like to have some things around that they can just fiddle around with and keep themselves occupied. And otherwise, I think it's torture to say, "Hey, look at all this stuff you can't touch it."
I think it's fundamental to not forget that these are toys.
Well, maybe.
Well, a lot of them aren't designed for kids necessarily.
But they're designed as, I mean, they may be the hyper realized form of a toy.
Yeah.
But the idea that happened was I want to make the ultimate toy of this character.
Yeah.
It may not play like a toy, but the idea was that
regardless of who it's marketed at, those kids are going to want to play with it.
Right.
Yeah.
So,
it's gonna look awesome.
So I mean, having kids play with your toys really kind of helps you,
yeah. I mean, we noticed that, we've probably mentioned it before, but when we went to Japan, the Bandai Museum, didn't think about it beforehand, but there were little kids running around digging everything that was in that shop, and they loved it. And it was such a heartwarming, I guess, kind of thing to see. Because it's, we're so used to dealing with like nerd rage and all that stuff. That to see like a 3-year-old, running around with an Ultraman, like it's the greatest thing in the world.
Right. And it's a toy to them. It's a character that they've seen on TV, that they see on lunchboxes, and it's the stuff that we don't have that connection to it here, without us kind of introducing that connection.
Mm-hmm.
So, etiquette number 2, they're toys. Let kids play with some of them, and they'll leave the expensive ones alone.
Yeah.
But always watch out for the big kids.
Yeah.
How about here's an etiquette question for you. Not kids.
That's where it gets tough.
Okay.
How about the
people that come over?
How about the women folk?
Well, that's a whole nother thing. That's a whole nother podcast.
How to get them to actually play?
Yeah,
with
no.
That's
So
different,
you're a normal guy, right?
You're not.
At least you pretend you're one.
Right.
In public.
You are in public.
Okay.
So is that what you're asking? When a normal guy comes over, do you let them, or fellow collector? Because that's two different things.
No, I'm going with the normal guy. I'm going with the outsider comes in. So
Friend from work.
A friend from work, or for example, my daughters now have friends over, and their parents will come and pick them up.
Yeah.
And they'll come downstairs and they'll go, "Wow, you got a lot of toys." I remember, what's that one? The guy came over the other day. Who was it? It was we had a guy do some plumbing work, and he saw my Yamato stuff. He's like, "What's that? I was on TV, and it had there's like a gun that shoots out of the front. It's like a ship." And I'm like, "Yeah, Star Blazers." He's like, "Yeah, I used to watch that,
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's cool, but
you don't want to let them play.
Any collector is going to be like, because I have ham hands and I break shit all the time, and I know what I'm doing. Some other guy.
But did he ask you to play with it?
No,
because I don't think that was going to happen very often. I'm not sure that's going to be an issue.
But will you pick up? I will pick up certain things and hand them to people.
Yeah.
To see what they think of them.
Right.
That I know that they're not going to damage too much.
Right.
Well, that's the key. Is you just gotta give them the right
But
one.
but toy nerds, and my friends who understand, it's touch anything.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because and if shit breaks. I'm hoping it doesn't.
Yeah.
But I understand that
it's probably destined to break.
Yeah, it's not a big deal. I know where he lives, and I can go break some of his shit.
Well, it's funny because that brings up an interesting point. One of my hugest pet peeves is when somebody who comes over, who's not a collector, if they do what your guy did, that's fantastic. But what I always get is, how much is all this worth? Which to me is like going up to somebody and saying, "Hey, how much you make?" Which
hey,
is
how big is
considered
your dick?
rude. Yeah, I don't really want to talk about that stuff because to me it's not the point, and I usually just kind of gloss it and go, "I don't know, whatever," and then try to get rid of them, basically.
I'm with you.
I just find that question to be particularly.
Well, that's why
annoying.
I think a lot of us as collectors, we tend to put our stuff, sort of out of the way, but like somebody can stumble on it.
Yeah.
But they have to go and find it.
Yeah.
So it's not quite there all the time, but
sometimes, like like a plumbing guy, he may have to go through
yeah.
wherever it's stored. So, so even if you're not a collector, if for some weird reason you're watching this, don't ask that question. It's annoying.